Welcome to this class, this study on the specific theories of counseling psychology. And today, as you can see on your screen there, I've put it for you. We are talking about transactional analysis by one Eric Berne. And we'll be looking at some of them. I know you can read on your own, but it is important to hear it from somebody. Otherwise, you can only be a private candidate. So we'll try to get a few things done and you'll be doing the rest. So when you think of Eric Berne theory on transactional analysis, we start by looking at the way he views nature, his view on the role of a counselor, the goals of counseling, and the techniques of counseling. From there, we shall look at the behavior theory by B.F. Skinner. And again, we also look at his view of human nature, the role of a counselor, the goals of counseling, the techniques in counseling. We shall also, if time allows us today, look at reality therapy of William Gracer. If we can manage to look at the three, the better. Okay, so that is where we are today, looking at specific theories that individuals have propounded. We shall try the three if we can get enough time. So let me get back to Eric Berne. Eric Berne, transactional analysis, his view of nature. Now, in this transactional analysis theory in counseling psychology, it has an optimistic view of human nature that believes that people can change despite life's events, and that it is never too late to change one's life. So that is a very, very, very optimistic starting point by Eric Berne or Eric Berne. And Eric Berne therefore sees human nature positively. So there is nothing mounting. There is nothing mounting in terms of cribbing the difficulties in life. There's nothing Mount Everest or the tall Mount Kenya, which is too wrong. You can still solve any human problem in counseling through the theory that we are seeing, Eric Berne's optimism. Now, Eric Berne, in his transactional analysis, goes on to say that all decisions that are made in life can be redecided. You can redecide. In theology, we talk about reconstruction. But in his counseling psychology, he talks about redeciding, re-examining. You can still go over a problem that gave you headache, that looked impossible, and make it possible. You can heal water from a very dry stone in a person who is psychologically depressed and make that person walk again. So transactional analysis uses four major methods to analyze and predict behavior. Number one, structural analysis looks at what is happening within the individual. Okay, so you structurally analyze the individual broadly. Number two, transactional analysis looks at what is happening between two or more people. Number three, Game analysis looks at transactions between individuals leading to negative feelings. Number 4, script analysis looks at the life plan the individual has chosen to follow. So all this you see within transactional analysis of Eric Berne, there are other forms of analysis that keeps coming, and they are structural analysis, game analysis, script analysis. When we come to script analysis within transactional analysis, Eric Berne now narrows it down to you, the individual. Again, we said in counseling, it is not the other person who designs for you. It is this other counselor who helps the client to make a decision. So from there you can see the fourth point, or the fourth major method to analyze and predict behavior within transactional analysis of Eric Berne. It is all about script analysis. They call it script because the individual you have to observe what plan the individual has chosen to follow. Once you know the line he has chosen to follow, it is very easy from there to help this person to get through the difficulties he is going through, because you have brought it into a level of a script. The script means you are now more or less narrowing it up to understand this person at the closest level possible, so that you pursue the lines within which this person is going. Now, structural analysis describes each person in terms of 3 ego states. Ego is from Sigmund Freud, and you can see we are getting back to it. So in the structural analysis, it describes each person in terms of 3 ego states. Number 1 is parent ego state, which contains the parental admonishments and values with do's, shoulds, and oughts. Number 2, adult ego state contains the objective, the thinking, the rational and logical ability to deal with reality. The third one, child ego state, is the source of childlike behaviors and feelings. So you look at the person within the 3 ego states: the parent ego state, the adult ego state, and the child ego state. Okay, now coming specifically to transactional analysis itself, we note 4 major points here. One is complementary transaction is characterized by both people communicating from the same ego state. Number 2, crossed transactions are characterized by both people coming from different ego states and resulting in unexpected hurtful response. Number 3, ulterior transactions are characterized by people coming from different ego states, but the responses appear to be from the same ego state. Number 4, game analysis involves 3 levels of games or ulterior transactions that appear to be complementary. And these 3 levels of games are: A, first degree, which are games played in social situations leading to mild upsets. Number B, second degree games are played in more intimate circles and lead to really bad feeling. Number 3, Third-degree games are violent, usually ending in jail or hospital or the morgue or death. So you can see the game analysis, it involves the three levels of games or ulterior transactions that appear to be complementary. So you can see the person is in trouble, but there is optimism in this transactional analysis theory. Looking at E, script analysis, it involves the plans that a person makes for their life. And some of the common ones are: 1, never scripts result in a person who believes she is never do well. So there's that script in you that where you don't trust yourself or the client think he can never do it. He will never do it. It is called never script. And it results in a person who believes she is never do well. Is a village never do well. I'm always a failure, I'm always a failure. But you have a solution to such people, because we are dealing with a very optimistic theory in counseling psychology, that is transactional theory. And you see, transactional analysis, it is come from the English ones, or in management, we talk of transactional development, theory of development, or management. Now, when it is in management, when we talk about transactional in management, we talk about a person who maintains the status quo. Fights very hard. And you can even remember, if you have read the Bible, where Jesus talks about the parable of the talents, where somebody was to keep the talents as they were. He didn't destroy, he didn't hurt the talents, but he did not trade with it. And then when the owner came, he said, you are just a transactionalist. You maintained it, but you did not improve on it or destroy it. Now, there in the text, in the biblical text, he was more or less punished. But in counseling psychology, we don't treat transactionalist analysis as a very negative thing, because you maintain this person to be back, to remain. So it's not bad in this, in counseling psychology. But you see, the best person in management is transformative reader, not a transactionalist reader. Transformative empowers everybody to feel great, raises their self-esteem, makes them feel we can do it. But a transactionalist only maintains the status quo. So now, what are we saying? You have found a person who is a never script character. Never script is the one who believes he can never do well. And you want to make this person feel you can do well. If others can do it, why not you? If you have been making several mistakes in your life, we can restore you and make you where you are. Transactionally, we can take you back. So that is what our key character today, Eric Berne, in his transactional analysis, is just taking us. So we are saying, as we end this section, script analysis involves 6 major points in Eric Berne's analysis. Number 2, until scripts result in the person who continues to wait until they can deserve the reward. So there's a question of waiting also as another dimension of somebody waiting, and until scripts, there are these plans. We are talking about the plans that a person can make for their life. You can also wait. A person can wait to wait until they can deserve that reward or what they are looking for. Number 3, always scripts result in a person continuing without change. Number 4, after scripts result in anticipation of difficulty after a certain event. Now, so there are there are some issues that script analysis involves all these. Number 4, after script results in anticipation of difficulty after a certain event. Other plans is open-ended scripts result in lack of direction after a given time or event. The last one, the ideal life script. The ideal life script is one that is characterized by the statements: I'm okay, you are not okay, I'm not okay, you are okay, and I'm not okay, you are not okay. Okay? So what are we trying to say? The ideal life script is one that is characterized by I'm okay. At the end of the day, that's what I mean. That's what we are being told in trying to study this guy. Remember, this is his theory. We are trying to also unveil it, or trying to explore the theory by our friend here, Eric Berne. You can see Eric Berne. Yeah, that is the theory we are trying to look at. And so that is where you reach, where you say, I'm okay, you are not okay. That is the language at the very end. So that is what, those are some of the things that if you are conducting, trying to restore somebody in his view, those are some of the comments you expect to hear. Now, according to Eric Berne, the role of a counselor is, number 1, a teacher of transactional analysis and its unique language. So when you are a counselor, you are there to try to analyze, to restore this person. Transact is to restore. And you have to know the language of doing these things. It is not every language that counsels people. Number B, the counselor contracts with the client for the changes that they desire. Concerning the goals, the goal is to not only run, to adjust to life, but to attain health and autonomy. Until you are back again and you have the autonomy, you can make your own decisions. You can say, I'm okay, I'm all right, according to this transactional analysis theory in counseling psychology. You are not yet done. Number B, through the gaining of autonomy, the client can be more aware, it can be more intimate, and it can be more spontaneous, or lead a spontaneous living, which is a life free of games and self-defeating life script. So life has so many scripts anyway. You have seen so many of them. The never scripts, until scripts, always scripts, after scripts, open-ended script, the ideal life script. They are quite a number. The ideal is where you say, I'm okay, you are okay, okay, I'm all right. Yeah, that is the language of ideal script, ideal life script. So life is full of scripts. Or, yeah, there's the never script. We said these are the fellows who are always pessimistic. Okay? They are those who postpone. They are those who feel the continuity of change. They are called always scripts. They are those who feel, they anticipate what would happen. They are called after scripts. They are those who lack the election after they undergo an event or something. They are called open-ended. There are those who are characterized by I'm okay, you are okay, and those are the very ideal, all that. So going now to techniques, let us now try to see the techniques. We say that in addition to structural, transactional, game and script analysis, transactional analysis counselors, let me repeat, in addition to structural, transactional, game and script analysis, transactional analysis counselors other techniques. In other words, the other techniques, apart from what we have looked at above, Eric Berne, you can remember, I have to remind you, we are dealing with this guy, his theory of transactional analysis. I have to remind you what we are doing, because we are in class, we are learning. No, nothing to do with rushing to read notes. No, it's a question of we move bit by bit. Beside what we have considered there, some of these other techniques are, number one, treatment contract. There is also interrogation. There is also specification. There is also confrontation. There is also explanation. There is another type or another technique in transactional analysis theory in counseling psychology you call illustration. There is also confirmation. There is also interpretation. There is also finally crystallization. Now, looking at treatment contract, it is an agreement between the counselor and the client about what is to be accomplished and what responsibilities are agreed upon. Number two, interrogation involves forcing the client to answer from the adult ego state through a succession of confrontive questions. So you may look like a criminal intelligence officer when you start interrogating. Sometimes you are like a bit combative. In this transactional analysis theory of Eric Berne, where you may make this client to answer from adult ego state that we noted above through a succession of confrontive questions. But always it is what if, what about this or the other, okay? It is about to be questions that lead this guy to speak, not the confrontation that grammatically we may be talking about, because you are really not meant for that. Of course, those who are in criminal psychology, because there are various types of psychology, industrial psychology, pastoral psychology, they may be a bit rough, and sometimes it is dehumanizing, and sometimes counselors have actually tortured people with tough questions. They have injured people more than they have healed people. That is what a good counselor will avoid, not to be the real enemy of the people you are counseling through some very far-reaching questions. Now, the other technique is specification, which is all about identifying the ego state. That is the source of the transition. Number four is confrontation, which is the process of pointing out inconsistencies. The other point is explanation, which is a process where the counselor teaches the adult ego states of the client attent of transactional analysis. Okay? The other one is illustration. Another technique is illustration. It's a story or example that is used to portray a point. Number 7 is confirmation, which is a technique where the counselor directs the client's attention to a previous modified behavior that is reoccurring. Number 8, we have interpretation technique in Eric Berne's Transactional Analysis theory in counseling psychology. Interpretation. It involves the counselor explaining to the child ego states the reasons behind the client's behavior. Okay? So, for you to come up with the child ego state, adult ego state, it is that what educationists call diagnostic analysis, whereby you first interrogate your student when you go to class. You ask them not to interrogate as such. You tell them to explain themselves or introduce themselves and be more detailed so that you can tell what kind of class you are having. That is diagnostic assessment for a teacher. I can see teachers here in the group. So once you know where they are coming from, some are from Nairobi, some are from very rural, they have never seen a computer, you now know how to teach these people because you know what kind of person you are having. So for you to apply adult ego state, to teach about adult ego state or child ego state or whatever ego state you have seen above in Eric Berne's counseling theory, it all depends on that diagnostic assessment that you did before you started teaching. You have to know your students. Some are A people, some are D people, some are doing this level, some have this exposure. You must know the person. Even when you come to even those who have studied other areas like history, religion, we have John Paul I saying, teach youth Latin, but it is more important to know the youth first. That is, he was talking about diagnostic assessment. Know the people before you start talking to anybody. Know the person so that you know whom you are telling. So equally in counseling, the mode of counseling, even in Eric Berne's transactional analysis theory, is all determined by that diagnostic assessment because you have known the kind of people you are having. You know their strengths and the weaknesses. You are supposed to know the people before you teach them the Latin or English or anything you are teaching. The last technique in Eric Berne's transactional analysis is crystallization. Now, this one occurs when the client realizes that game playing can be given up and the client can enjoy the freedom of choice in behavior. So it occurs when the client realizes that game playing can be given up. And when we say game playing, it doesn't necessarily mean the game itself or a play or concert or something. It's all about the vicissitudes of life, the vicissitudes of life. They can be given up. You can change from being going south to north or going east to west. A situation may logically dictate. Okay? So, and from there, one can enjoy freedom of choice in behavior. One can choose what to be. In other words, you can choose what you want to be and become a healed person. If no comments, I'll move on to the second one, B.F. Skinner's behavioral theory. And when I continue, I'm assuming there is no comment. If it comes, we just pick it and try to move on. Okay, we have 14 minutes for this one, for this unit. So, behavioral theories by B.F. Skinner. So, in his this counseling counseling psychology theory, that is behavioral theories. He calls them theories because it's like he combines, he sees it may not necessarily be one theory, there are quite a number. Within the behavioral, there are many. B.F. Skinner has a way in which he views the human nature. Of course, that's why we start in addressing the theories of counseling. Now, Skinner has quite a number of points about human nature, because you cannot do counseling without understanding the human nature. How do people behave? Remember, counseling psychology, there is psychology itself, and you cannot do psychology without behavior. Yes, you are counseling within the psychological framework. So, behaviorists, with the exception of cognitive behaviorists, concentrate on what is observed. So the behavior has to do with thinking, that is cognitive, and there is also observation. Yeah, you have to be observing. Even when you are talking to somebody, you can see how he is moving the body, how he's twisting his head, the neck, how he reacts in terms of body gestures in general. Number B, behaviorism has a here and now focus. So there's no behavior that is just for now. It has a future perspective and the present perspective. And I would add and say there is also past, there is also historical perspective in informing the behavior. Of course, Skinner doesn't bring out the historical bit, but I add it. Number C, a basic tenet of behavioralism is the fact that all behavior is learned, whether the behavior is maladaptive or adaptive. Number D, behaviorists believe that adaptive behavior can be learned to replace maladaptive behavior. Okay? The kind of behavior you earn or from the society, you even don't have a reason for it. It is maladaptive. But you can adapt behavior through learning, and you replace the maladaptive behavior. Yeah, so human nature, we said in psychology last week, human nature changes when we begin to see things in a new way. So we have the potential of changing according to B.F. Skinner. Okay, number E. Behaviorists believe in setting up well-defined, measurable, and observable goals in therapy. So you can set up well-defined, measurable, and observable. We can do it. So it is not a question of naturality. It is we can decide to set up a measurable, observable, and well-defined goals in working out to treat a person who needs a therapy. Number F, or number 6, behaviorists reject the idea that human personality is composed of traits. That is, to me, a bit controversial, because I have always thought that human personality is composed of traits. I have always thought too, but according to Skinner, he rejects that idea. Number G, behaviorists strive for empirical evidence to support their use of specific techniques and to support the usage of behavioral therapy techniques. Number H, respondent learning is often referred to as stimulus response learning, in which the learner does not need to be an active participant. The outcome is the conditioning of involuntary responses, the unlearning of these conditional or conditioned responses is called counter conditioning. So there's a very critical point raised there. I want to comment not on every point he says, but I think I can comment on this. That respondent running is often referred to as stimulus response running, in which the runner does not need to be an active participant. And the outcome is the conditioning of involuntary responses. So that involuntary responses can be conditioned. Involuntary responses is like you are talking to somebody, as you talk, the person starts projecting, responding in a manner that sometimes he may think you are talking about him, or you know him beyond what you should know. You have been told by his enemy or rival. Yeah, you can condition it, okay, by providing and learning those responses, by trying to provide certain information to show that you are not there where this person is thinking. That is counter conditioning. You can counter that, those involuntary responses. Hope you understand. Number one is operant conditioning, which requires that the participant be actively involved. Okay, they are that is the human nature, according to him. It requires that, according to Skinner, that the participant be actively involved. And this type of running involves rewarding the desired behavior or punishing the undesired behavior until the person learns to discriminate the desired behavior that elicits the reward. Operant conditioning differs from respondent conditioning in that operant conditioning is a conditioning of voluntary responses through rewards or reinforces. Number J, social modeling is the process where new behavior is learned from watching other people and events without experiencing the consequences from the behavior or engaging in the behavior. So this social modeling, rather, in human behavior is where you learn from watching other people. So human beings also learn, because we are talking about human behavior. They learn from watching other people are doing. So if I see you teaching in a certain style, I can also disregard it or learn from it or improve upon it or find it good. It doesn't mean whatever is done by others, you must learn from it. You may not. But learning from others is part of the human behavior according to Skinner. Okay, let us now look at Skinner's understanding of a counselor. He has 3 points. One, the role of the behavioral counselor vary. They are not the same. So not all counselors, not all behavioral counselors or counselors dealing with behaviors of the people are the same, and include being a consultant. So a counselor, according to him, is a consultant, a reinforcer, or person who makes people understand things that they could have lost, and is also a facilitator. Number two, the counselor is active and may supervise other people in the client's environment to achieve the goals of therapy. Number D, counselors using social learning may model the desired behavior, while respondent and operant conditioning counselors are more directive and prescriptive in their approach to the therapy goals. Number D, use of tests and diagnosis varies greatly among behavioral counselors. So the issue is varying. How you test, how diagnose, how you provide the therapy or treatment, or how you counsel. There is the issue of varying, because human behavior, you have noted that Skinner has raised so many points of how human behavior can be all about. There are some controversial points that I've noted that we may not necessarily, and the person are not buy, but you can see how he does it. Now, concerning the goals, you note this. Concerning the goals, the goal of behaviorist counselors, like other theories, is to improve the life of the client through better adjustments to life and to achieve personal goals professionally and personally. B, there are 4 steps in developing therapeutic goals. Okay? One is to define the problem concretely, specifying when, where, how, and with whom the problem exists. The other number is take a developmental history of the problem, eliciting conditions surrounding the beginning of the problem and what solutions the client has tried in the past. Number 3, establish the specific sub-goals in small incremental steps toward the final goal. Number 4, determine the best behavioral method to be used to help the client change. So these are the goals of a behaviorist counselor in Skinner's theory. We are dealing with Skinner's theory. Now, his techniques is broad. Shows we can only clear this and move to another course. So let me just look at some of them. Techniques is A, reinforcers increase the desired behaviors when they follow the behavior. Number B, or number 2, reinforcers. Because we know that the counselor is many things. He can be a reinforcer, he can be a consultant, he can be a teacher, according to this behavioral theory. So we are talking now as counselor, as a reinforcer, making you see the thing you are not seeing. That is reinforcing. So you increase the desired behavior when you follow the behavior pattern of a person. The other one is reinforcers can be negative or positive. And we noted that you can be negative depending on how you go about it. Now, positive reinforcers are those that are desired by the client, while negative reinforcers are contingencies to be avoided. Okay? Primary reinforcers are those that are intrinsically, while secondary reinforcers are tokens that acquire their value by being associated with a primary reinforcer. Now, there's also schedules of reinforcement. That is, fixed ratio, which means that the reinforcer is delivered after a set number of responses. In other words, there are a lot of details that are summarized here, but I hope they are simple enough to help us understand that fixed ratio in schedule of reinforcing those things you are trying to reinforce as a counselor. There are such things that comes like fixed ratio approach within the schedule of reinforcing. There is also fixed interval when you are doing that. There is also variable ratio when you are doing that. There is also a variable interval when you are doing that. Now, fixed ratio means that the reinforcer is delivered after a set number of responses. Number 2, fixed interval means that the reinforcer is delivered after a set time lapses. So there are times when you fix the date, the timing, that is what you call fixed interval. When you are now moving technically, we are dealing with the techniques. When you have the timings, you bring about the timelines. So there is also, so it can be fixed ratio or the fixed interval where the reinforcer, you the counselor, is now dealing with whether the time has lapsed. So what? Time is over for intervals or counseling sessions. There is also variable ratio, which means variable ration, which means that the reinforcer or the counselor is delivered after varying numbers of responses. There's a time when you say, after all these sessions, we have the deal. And the last one, the fourth one, in this change of reinforcement, is a variable interval, means that the reinforcer is delivered at varying time intervals. So it's like a continuation of variable ratio, where the reinforcer is delivered at varying time intervals. See, within the techniques now, back to the techniques, we are still there. Actually, it should be our D. Is shaping, is running behavior in small steps that are successive approximations toward the final desired behavior. So chaining is the order of the desired sequence of skills leading to the desired behavior. So there is the issue of shaping the behavior. Remember, we are dealing with behavioral theory by Skinner. So we will not run away from shaping the behavior, where there are steps, successive steps. There is also approximation. There is some inductive logicality in all this, as you move towards what you consider the desired behavior. There is generalization, which is a transfer of the learnings from the behavioral therapy to the outside world. Okay? There is also maintenance, which is a consistent continuation of a learned behavior or learned behaviors without support from external sources to the client's self-control and self-management. So when you are able to get the person in this behavioral theory by Skinner, when you get a person to control himself or herself, you can say the deal is good. If a person can manage his challenges, it can be a drinking habit, it can be what we call parasitism, okay? And in life, when you are not able to manage yourself, you don't know how to manage the little finances, you don't know how to manage the debts you get, and this person has come to tell you, of course, I said we have a problem in Kenya. You start a counseling center, sometimes you feel quite few people are coming. Yet we have a lot of problems, all of us. Even those who counsel, they should also go to other counselors. If they are, we have built this culture of counseling one another, mentoring one another, okay? That culture, unfortunately, is weak in Kenya. We are not saying it's not there. But now when we talk about somebody failing somewhere, everybody has certain failure somewhere, little failings, all of us. But if we reach a time when we can control ourselves, this person, this counselor can say the deal is good, because this person now tells me he is now coping with a management issue. It can be personal, it can be anything, including even matters marital, matters financial, matters dealing with people, dealing with the society, dealing with your critics, your enemies, your friends. Yeah, it can be such a way that you lose so many friends because of the self-management. Your behavioral aspect has issues. So Skinner gives another point. Extinction is the elimination of a behavior through withholding a reinforcer. So there's the extinction where you eliminate a behavior. It can be unpleasant behavior. When you even don't need a counselor or the reinforcer, you don't need the person. That is a great technique for you. You may not need technique, the reinforcer, but you have managed, so you don't need that person. you may not need to go for sessions because you have managed it. The other point is punishment in this technique is the delivery of aversive stimuli, resulting in suppressing or eliminating a behavior. There is also behavioral rehearsal, which is as a technique is repeating and improving a behavior until the client accomplishes the behavior that is desired. The other point is environmental planning as a technique. According to Skinner, is a process where the client arranges circumstances to promote or inhibit particular behaviors. There is also systematic desensitization. That systematic desensitization is a process accomplished through successive approximations to reduce anxiety toward an anxiety-provoking event or situation, and the steps needed to accomplish the behavior are listed and prioritized from no anxiety to most anxiety. The hierarchy is reviewed with the counselor helping the client to learn relaxation techniques to reduce or overcome anxiety. As a client cannot feel anxious and relaxed at the same time, the phenomenon is termed reciprocal inhibition. Now, through this process, the client can ultimately perform the desired behavior. The other point as we look at the conclusion, as we conclude this lesson today, is contingency. We can look at assertiveness training, which is a technique where the client is taught to express the appropriate feelings without hostility, anxiety, or passivity. And where the training may include all of the other behavioral techniques to achieve the desired behaviors. So when we come to assertive training technique, according to Skinner, you employ you go across the various techniques, across the domains, the technical domains, where you employ the techniques as needed, as the situation may demand. If the situation demands, you employ a variety of techniques, so be it. Otherwise, the behaviors are complicated. They are very complicated. The contingency contracts are written agreement in which the desired behavior are specifically described, what reinforcers are to be given, and under what circumstances the reinforcers will be administered to the client. And they do well when you are working with the children. They do well. Of course, there are obvious reasons for this. There is also implosion techniques in behavioral theory in counseling psychology, where we're having the client desensitized by imagining an anxiety-provoking situation that may have a dire consequences. Flooding is similar, except the anticipated outcome of the anxiety-provoking situation, which is not dire. Now, this technique of implosion is contradicted. It is contraindicated for use by beginning counselors. Now, timeout as a technique is an aversive technique where the client is prevented, usually through some form of isolation, from receiving a positive reinforcer. Overcorrection as a technique in behavioral counseling psychology or behavioral theory in counseling psychology Overcorrection, thus, is an aversive technique where the client is required to restore environment and to improve it substantially. Of course, timeout is negative because if somebody is isolated or stopped from receiving a positive reinforcer and therefore time is out, it is something that it can come from the enemies of counseling or somebody who is trying to prevent it altogether. Concerning covert sensitization, it is an aversive technique where a behavior is eliminated by pairing its association with an unpleasant thought. Okay? So you see, when you bring unpleasant ideas or thinking, it actually becomes aversive. Okay? And sometimes it may help because you are reminding somebody, remember somebody who drank the way you are drinking. He lost the job. He needed to go to work. Okay? So such a behavior brought to somebody as covert sensitization may sometimes yield fruits. Sometimes it even hurt even more. So it's a question of looking at the situation as it is. Skinner also talks about cognitive restructuring. It is actually Skinner in his behavioral, he's too detailed anyway than any other, because you see, we talked about behavioral. It is not behavioral theory, it is behavioral theories. It is one of the broadest theory in counseling psychology. Even for us to summarize it this far, we have tried. So cognitive restructuring is helping the clients change how they think about an event or situation by examining their thoughts and challenging the irrational or self-defeating thoughts. The other one is stress inoculation technique, which is the 3-step preventative or preventive techniques. There is also define the nature of stress and coping for the client. Another one is defining the nature of stress. And of course, the coping of the client. That is a technique when you define it and make this other person understand the nature of the kind of stress he could be undergoing. It's like teaching now. You said a counselor in Skinner's view on the role of a counselor is including teaching. It is including reinforcing. It is including, according to this Skinner's behavioral theories, is also including a counselor is also a consultant. So you can see he has a broad role on who a counselor is. So if you just teach somebody, okay, you define the nature of stress or the nature of the problem and how it goes in general. By the time you stop teaching, this person is healed, is able to cope with the situation, to cope up. The other one is teach specific stress reduction and coping skills to expand those stress and coping skills the client already uses. So at the same point, teaching as a technique in counseling in behavioral theory or theories. The other one is the client practices. The client practices these new skills outside of the therapy room or treatment room or counseling room in real life situation. Okay? So you can also, there is also a chance where you can do it outside. Like you are talking, like you are conversing, you are walking and you are naturalizing the talk, and the talk will bear fruit. As this person may get some hearing in the course of you are walking together, talking, socializing. You could be doing a lot because behavior is a very complicated thing. It may not be applied uniformly. The last one in behavioral theory or theories in Skinner's works, thought stopping is a series of procedures which help the client to replace self-defeating thoughts with assertive, positive, or neutral thoughts. The initial procedure is one in which the counselor asks the client to think obsessively in a self-defeating manner. Then suddenly and unexpectedly yells, "Stop!" You told him to behave funnily, and then tells him, "Stop." The client cannot continue the self-defeating thoughts after this disruption. You can see behavior is very complicated. It can be tiresome if we get into the details of Skinner's behaviorist theories. Because you see, you want somebody to behave like a drunkard, and you tell him practically, "Can you walk like a drunkard? Can you walk like a drunkard?" And then he tells him, that is a behavior you display. Or can you talk like a drunkard, where you dismiss people? "You are not richer than me. You are not cleverer than me. You are not wiser than me." Now tell him to say many things, or she says many things. And then you tell that person, "Stop it now." That can have a psychological effect. And you may stop it, according to Skinner's behavioral theory. In other words, we cannot exhaust these techniques in behavioral theory, as Skinner tells us, because you may tell us even some things we may not totally agree, or may never know. We may not have known them. Okay? So those self-defeating thoughts, or just saying, "I can't pay my debts, I cannot manage my debts, I'll never even make my life happier, or restore my broken down life." You tell him, "Can you now stop? Repeat what you have been saying, repeat it as I hear." And then you tell him, "Stop it." Okay? That can have a psychological impact. So there are so many theories. We may never even do anything to satisfy such an ambitious unit. We may not. Thank you very much. More questions now.